Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And Trump is back in office, and gaming journos can't even.
I know.
They can't even.
They're losing their shit.
We're going to talk about a couple examples here. This has been floating around. Pirate Nation put it up. A few other people put it up. But this is an IGN journalist, reviewer, saying that they're going to take points off if anybody refers to the Gulf of America in a video game. Now, I don't know if it's a joke or if they're actually going to do that, but given...
No, he said, you think I'm joking? I'm going to do it for real.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. There you go. For real. If you put the Gulf of America in your game, you're going to get points knocked off at IGN. I don't think they're going to have to worry about it. I don't think they're going to be there very long. I don't think a lot of these people are going to be there very long because just a couple of weeks ago, we had more layoffs at IGN, GamesIndustry.biz, and a few others. And when you broadcast that you're going to tank a review based on politics, you're putting a huge target on yourself.
Right. You're just making everybody question your credibility.
So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about some gaming journos consoling each other in the wake of Trump's return, and why this is it shouldn't affect you, right? I mean, personally, it may affect you. But if your job is to just review video games and talk about video games and talk about hardware and talk about the nuts and bolts of the video game industry and give honest reviews about games, Trump being back in office should not have any effect on you on a professional level. But they think it's the end of the world. And on some level, it may be, because we are finding out that, some government money has been going to publications that have been writing hit pieces on gamers. And it's also a sign of the times. The zeitgeist is changing. The attitude is changing. I mean, people really didn't like your hot takes before, and they're not going to tolerate your hot takes now. So I think they know they're kind of on borrowed time here. So let's talk about all that. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to Kickstarter. You still have about a week yet. Check out the Shadowbinder enamel pin set that we have up there. So you guys have been great. These are funded. They'll ship pretty damn quick because everything's already done. We just have to get them back from the manufacturer. That's out on Kickstarter, the Shadowbinders enamel pin set. So you sent this over. I saw it floating around yesterday.
I think it's funny because they're just like, if you put the Gulf of America on a map in a game, which, I mean, most games aren't going to probably do that anyway because it's usually fantasy settings or whatever. I'm going to take off points. I'm going to take a whole point off my review. Well, one is if you have that much clout, given the reaction, the responses, and the lack of, you don't have much clout to begin with. But they're like, you think I'm joking? You think I want to do this forever? I can start some fires on the way out, try and call the bluff. I really don't think you can do much, Len. I really, really don't think that you can. Nobody's ever let this amount of soft power go to their heads before.
Soft power.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of soft things about Len, I'm sure.
So Pirate Nation points out that it's Leanna Hafer, who loved Dragon Age the Veilguard.
Oh, yeah, shocker there.
I gave it a 9.
That this Len is, okay.
Yeah, and gave Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 a 9 too.
So we already know this person's, their opinions are based on politics and agenda. We already know that their reviews are bullshit.
Well, at least they're not hiding it anymore, because for the longest time, they tried to tell everybody that you were imagining things, that the gaming journos haven't gotten more and more political, that politics were not influencing what they covered, how they covered topics, and how they reviewed games, because they had ethics. And now the mask has completely fallen off. And now we know that it's always been about politics, hasn't it? For the last 10 years or so.
Nobody's cared what IGN thinks of a game for years now.
That is true. And what's really sad is that a lot of these gaming journos, and I'm using that term loosely, they're working for websites that at one point in time were actually pretty legit websites. In fact, some of you look in the histories of these websites, and a lot of them were basically just fan-run sites. They didn't make a lot of money, if any money, and then some corpo came along, bought them, and tried to juice them and tried to juice the gaming studios. And there's lots of AAA money. So I think it's like a combination of a lot of things. The AAA money is running out, and there's no future in it. So they're just like, fuck it. We don't care. We're just going to tell people what we actually think. But it's like, we figured it out like 10 years ago, guys.
Yeah, we already know what you actually think. You don't have to tell us. You've made it very clear.
So yeah, this is Len, indie developer. Apparently they weren't protected. Strategy, RPG,
Shocker
horror, narrative game freelancer. Oh my God.
So like Sweet Baby Inc.
Like a consultant. I love languages, folk, metal, and history. She, they. This is she, they, them. Writes for IGN, PC games, etc. I'm going to make a game. We're going to make a game. We're going to call it Gulf of America.
Gulf of America.
Gulf of.
Is it GOLF?
Yeah. Well, no. We should actually start a mini putt called Gulf of America. Gulf of America, and it's
somebody already did.
And it's all like presidents and oh my God, that'd be hilarious. And you could put balls in Trump's mouth if you want, because you got a Trump on. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think that'd be kind of funny. Anyone, let's see, Santa's Tavern here says, anyone who says they'll reduce their review score for calling it the Gulf of America is clearly stating that their review isn't about what they're actually reviewing, but about their politics. In other words, they're saying the reviews are worthless. Well, we've known this.
Right. That's all I'm hearing from this is that my review doesn't mean anything. That's what I'm hearing from it.
Well, the thing is that gamers aren't listening to these reviews anymore. Anyway, and this is why all these sites are dying. They're not being visited as often. The studios, I think, know on some level they're not spending the money on these websites like they used to. And the whole thing is imploding. Now, this is coming from Aftermath, which, I will give them props in the fact that these are a bunch of people that get fired from a bunch of these websites, but they went and started their own website.
Yeah. So I don't have to agree with them, but I will give them credit for actually putting their money where their mouth is and not just taking a warm seat. I will give them credit for that completely. I don't have to agree with them, but I will credit them for that.
Right. So, props to them for that. Again, don't agree with their takes, but at least they're doing something. They're not sitting around.
Right. I can respect the fact that they didn't just take a warm seat and they actually tried to build their own thing. I can respect that.
Now, that being said, they put this up a couple of weeks ago talking about the return of Trump, and that the general public is going to have to rely on gaming journos to get them through.
I don't understand
Trump
this.
Administration.
How important do you guys think you are? That's what I don't understand. Like, you're a game journalist. You're not a political journalist. You're a games journalist. Like, how swollen is your head? I just don't understand why you think you're so important. You're not.
Gaming journalism started, at least as best I can tell, there were fanzines out there back in the day, but really Electronic Gaming Monthly, I think, was the first publication that, allowed people to do it full time. And those guys all were just guys who played video games and wrote reviews about the games they played and the things they liked and the things they didn't like. And they'd talk about the tech and the new games coming out and interview developers, and politics never, ever, ever came up. Mm-mm. It just never came up because it wasn't related to the video game industry. It was, video games were fun. And actually back then, a lot of us left and right were united against censorship because the government, left and right, was trying very hard to censor video games. And that would come up in issues because especially, around, the early to mid 90s with Mortal Kombat and Doom. And, we had a lot of Puritans that were like, we can't allow these games. We can't allow Night Trap, even though Night Trap at that point was like 10 years old. It was actually made in the 80s. And it was released years later.
I do know what that is, actually. So.
Yeah, for the Sega CD, and everybody was like losing their shit. And I'm like, man, I remember, was it Phasmagoria? I the one horror game where I was surprised it was one of the early CD-ROM games, and like if the woman died, you play as this girl, and if she died, like her head would explode and it'd show blood like all over the place. It was like really gory. Ew. And it went from being like this PG, like cheesy PG schlocky horror movie to like, oh my God, there's like blood and guts everywhere. But anyway, but
not a game I would enjoy.
No, not a game you'd enjoy. Anyway, but yeah, so that was the extent of politics. Now politics, it's hard to imagine a gaming industry without politics because everything is so, as you say, pickled. And which is really sad because I'm like, I don't even remember what it was like to go to a message board and not have to sit there and wonder what the politics of the admins were because you didn't know if you're going to get booted off the message board or not. I mean, it was making the rounds again yesterday that one of the tabletop forums, I think it's RPGNet, was doubling down on banning anyone who showed any support for Trump or Musk or, you know, any of the cabinet or whatever. And I'm like, this was inconceivable 15 years ago, right?
I mean, we grew up at a time where you just, you know, you might argue about it. You disagree, and that's okay. But the level I'm seeing it now, where who can talk and who can't, and how they'll block any post by somebody else if they say this or that, is just insane.
So this article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the gist of it is, you know, gaming journalism is important. Trump is back. You need us. It's very important now more than ever. I'm like, again, what the hell does this have to do with politics? You're supposed to be talking about new video games, not politics. What games journalism can do now. Readers and fellow journalists are going to need what games journalists know in the face of the upcoming administration. Dun, dun, dun. So they're talking about how journalism broadly has begun to crumble under the onslaught. Load-bearing outlets like the Washington Post and the LA Times bending the knee in advance. The potential chilling effects of ABC's settlement with Trump and his ilk's threats against the press. As tech billionaires, people who exercise some sway over how the journalism will still be able to do gets out in the world, line up to kiss the ring or declare themselves the media.
So this is funny. So basically they're just salty and mad because they don't control the narrative.
Yeah.
That's what it all breaks down to. But again, everything they're talking about, you're not the Washington Post. You're not the LA Times. No. You're nowhere near ABC. You are video game journalists. It is not your job to cover political stuff and talk about this. You're supposed to just review games fairly.
Stay in your lane. That's all you have to do, right? Like,
I mean, stick to sports.
Stick to sports. Why did Gamergate happen? It happened because video game journalists did not stay in their lanes. They wanted to get political. They wanted to use, because basically a lot of these people are stuck slumming it in video game journalism because they thought it was going to get them into the Washington Post or the LA Times and the New York Times, or because they fancy themselves as being real journalists. The early games journalists were game players that just happened to write articles about the games they actually liked to play. And now you have to actually vet these gaming journos and be like, do you actually play video games? Because that should be criteria number one, right? I mean, if you don't actually play video games, if you have no knowledge of the video game industry, then you should not be working in the video game industry. But a lot of these people, they just want it. And that right there is a slip. You don't want to be a games journalist. You want to be an important Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. I want to be like Lois Lane. But
when you're supposed to be publishing the truth, it's supposed to be the truth about the video games.
Right. And the truth is the Nazis took over the whole industry and drove us out. How dare they? This is the thing too. Like the only reason there is a video game journalism industry or a comic book journalism industry or any of that is because there are fans of that genre and there's a demand for information and news about it. Right. But you're not necessary. Right. You're not necessary. You're not. Electronic Gaming Monthly, as much as I love it, it wasn't necessary. It existed because there were so many fans out there that were hungry for information about new games. Your job is not necessary. So, there's got to be a little perspective there. And then shitting where you eat, being like, we're owed this job in journalism, but then we're going to take a steaming dump on all the gamers and, denigrate them every chance we get.
Well, some of the gaming companies won't even give them copies anymore because of the crap they've done.
It's going to be harder for journalism to survive and for journalists to publish the truth. They're talking about the job cuts, the closures, the outsourcing, the memory holding, the degrading reinventions. Media owners are happy to grind games journalism up for parts and clicks, and there's a vocal portion of our audience fed on a diet of conspiracy theories. And if you click on that, it's about Sweet Baby Yank and insecurity who will cheer them on. What? If you're working in this field or reading this website, games journalism is worth more than that.
Okay, sorry. They were serious, and it struck me as funny.
A games journalist's greatest strength, the one I've highlighted desperately to every higher-up who's come to slash my site's budget or cut my people's jobs, is how versatile we are, how much writing about video games is actually writing about everything else. That is actually the problem right there. Writing about video games is actually writing about everything else. No, you should be writing about video games.
But people they don't go to IGN or Kotaku or whatever to get lectured about politics.
Oh, God.
I could have said they don't go to those sites now because that's why they don't go to your sites anymore.
Okay, this is exactly why people are tuning out. A games journalist is an art critic, a business and labor reporter, a service writer, a tech expert, a culture analyst.
No, okay, yeah, boy, wow, what a puffed up bunch of dipshits.
We regularly have to work outside our niches or comfort zones, push to where different topics overlap and make sense of that messy space. As the people coming to power try to tell a falsely simplistic story about the world, games journalists know how to paint the full picture for readers, to show them where topics and issues intersect and explain why those intersections matter.
You're games journalist. People come to see what you thought of a video game. None of this shit is what they want you to know. Why are your blogs failing? Why? That paragraph right there. That's not your job.
Oh my God, it gets better. So now you have to come to the games journalist because of Gamergate, because they lived through Gamergate. And now everybody's going to be living through Gamergate, according to
fuck's sake.
These self-important. This is exactly why.
As a woman, stop lecturing me about Gamergate and women in gaming.
Games get dragged into politics as a scapegoat whenever violence occurs, but we know that the soon-to-be ruling party took its playbook from our beat. We're intimately familiar with its tactics and how they're deployed to silence journalists the young and disaffected. Woo the young and disaffected. Some claim swung the last election and spread misinformation that primes people for more. But weirdly, oh my God, I can't. We've learned and are still learning how to stand up to those tactics. And
your job is to cover video games.
Our audiences know how to see through them too. You don't have much of an audience left.
No.
They know how to see through you too. Right? We have skills to share with other journalists, and we have examples to point to of how the communities we cover foster positive environments and use their passion for good in the face of opposition. And apart from us, people in gaming and online culture have made their own information ecosystems to educate and empower each other to identify and counter the hatred and lies that are only going to get louder. I
don't think I can listen to any more of this shit.
Okay, so it just goes on, talks about the tech moguls, the NFTs, the grifters.
Oh, no, so I love the word grifter. That always amuses me. Grifter to these people just mean anybody who doesn't agree with me. Because you could be talking about something that you're an expert in the field of, you collected or you played the games and for years and you know a lot about. But because you don't agree with them, you're automatically a grifter.
And they said that they know how to cut between the crap of actual journalism and influencers and personalities.
They're literally game journalists.
Yes.
That's what people are there for. They don't want to know what your hot takes are about politics.
You want to know what bothers somebody. You want to know what interests somebody. You want to know what their Achilles heel is. You listen to what they talk about the most. And these people talk about everything but video games, right? And so it obviously is not interesting. Again, it's, to me, from the outside, I look at this like you're not interested in covering video games, because if you were interested in covering video games, all you'd talk about nonstop, incessantly would be video games and how much you love video games and what your favorite games are. And, you know, reminiscing about past generations and consoles and experiences going to the arcades. And that's what you would talk about. That's what you would talk about. But you don't talk about those things, right? You talk about, well, the Washington Post and the LA Times and the New York Times and the blah, 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 and the nahtzees. It has nothing to do with games.
No.
It has nothing to do with games.
And that's all I keep hearing is we're not going to talk about games. We're going to talk about politics more and more because it's our job. We need to do it. It's like, but no one wants to listen to that. Like, why are you guys failing? Why are there keeping layoffs? It's really not that hard.
And if all this is starting to sound overly serious, yes. Even if you look at games journalism as little more than covering what basically amounts to expensive toys, yes. That's a beat full of writers telling stories about all the different ways people find joy.
You're allowed to find joy.
Joy out of everything.
Right? That's what I said. They were allowed to talk about joy. We had people these politically pickled people that were given free PlayStation 5. No, it was Xboxes. And they were mad because there's too many holes in it.
That was, yeah. So the Xbox, I forget if that was IGN. But I do know that I think it was Polygon. The one writer got a free PS5, and the whole thing devolved into some rant about how they couldn't be happy because Trump was in the White House.
Yes.
And, you know, how dare they be happy with the PlayStation 5? I'm like...
They were given one to review and talk about the merits of the system, and their review was about Trump.
So... I've been wrangling with how grandiose this all reads. Yeah, it sounds pompous.
You sound full of shit, dude. You're so puffed up. You're a balloon. See you in the Macy's parade.
I won't lie that I wrote it, at least in part, to have something to pep up a future version of me who's pinned to his couch in despair.
Oh my God.
Sounds like a lot of fun there, dude. You sound like a hell of a gamer who's having lots of fun.
And wants to spread the fun of video games.
Maybe it can help you too. Journalists outside of games are going to need the skills we've honed in the coming environment. Our readers are going to need all the skills they have to navigate an even louder, more confusing world of misinformation, one with higher stakes than just whether or not you should buy a video game. On so many days, games journalism can feel over, but by next week, I think we're going to need it.
We're going to need what? We're going to need games journalism. With games journalism or their version of games journalism, which is all politics all the time?
We need 2014 era games journalism to get people through the darkness of the second coming of Trump, which we told ourselves could not happen, would not happen. And it happened. But I'm so depressed. I'm just going to sit here. I'm like, I can't. These people are like, here's the thing. Sometimes, and I hate to be that guy, and I hate to just throw my hands up in the air and be like, whatever, but it's kind of like that. It's like, whatever. If everything is doom and gloom and you see no hope and this is the worst case scenario, whatever, sometimes Darwinism just does this thing and people will leave the industry. They'll just be like, I can't take it anymore. It's too sad. And I'm like, I'm sorry. You know, sometimes you can show everybody the positive things that are going on. You can show everybody a person how amazing things are, and maybe if it doesn't seem great now, that things are going to be better or things are going to get better. That, you know, life has an ebb and flow to it, and they still choose to wallow in misery. Did you ever see the movie? Well, it's really depressing. You probably never watched it. What Dreams May Come.
I do know What Dreams May Come. Yes.
Okay, so it's Robin Williams, which tracks, unfortunately, R.I.P. But so everybody in his family dies some point in time. He's in the afterlife, and his wife, I think she took her own life, if I remember correctly, because everybody else died.
It for years. I don't remember.
But she was in this like really dark place where he could not reach her. Like she just wanted to wallow in misery. She wanted to wallow in misery. She would not just pull herself out of the funk and go be with the rest of the family. And that's what it feels like with a lot of these people, is like they are going to choose to wallow in misery. They're not going to look for the bright spots in their own lives. They're not going to be like, hey, it might suck who's in the White House, but hey, maybe if I played video games, I can get a little escapism or whatever. No, because to them everything is politics,
and then they're talking about fun, and all they are is misery, and they're just like, even though he admits it at the end, I'm the sad sack, depressed, whatever. It's like, why would anybody want to read that? Why would anybody want to read what you have to say when all you want to do is just vomit your own misery about something fun like video games?
Yeah, it's like your wet blanket. It's. I'm just thinking, like, if Schultz was still alive, it'd be like, would we have a special called, like, you're a video game journalist, Charlie Brown?
I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
We just talk about how everything sucks. Anyway, are we going to wrap this up? I think we need to wrap this up. So there we go, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Check out the Shadowbinders pin set on Kickstarter. You got it about a week yet. Thank you very much.
Yep, those game journos can stay salty.
They can stay salty. Yeah, if you want to be miserable and depressed, that's on you, man. Like other people are moving on. Even people that don't like Trump are moving on. It is what it is. There you go. So, all right. We'll talk later.
Bye.